Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. I'm your host, the Supreme Litigant, and I'd like to welcome everybody back to Smart Lope TV. If you're new to my channel, please go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscription button, and turn that notification bell on. If you're not new, then just go ahead and hit the like button. I'll give y'all a few seconds to do that. All right, so I have something for y'all. If you're new to my channel, if you're curious about child support, or you're just new to my channel and you're curious about child support, I strongly advise you to watch this entire video. I try to get everything explained within 30 minutes. And then soon, I don't know when, y'all, but soon I'm gonna try to start back going live. But I just been busy, y'all, and I'm tired, so I do apologize for that. But anyway, as y'all can see on the this used to be the community section, but they call it posts now. But if you click on my YouTube channel, you scroll and you go down about past 6 months, you're going to see this right here. These cases, and there are cases older than this, just to let y'all know. But anyway, this case is from 1895, and I forgot how old this one is, but I believe this 1895 case is older than this case right here. But anyway, I just want y'all to pay attention, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this to y'all, and then I'm going to go to another page and explain to you what it means using terms that a 12th grader can understand. If you are a mother or a father, a young adult who hasn't had kids, you need to know your rights, and you really need to pay attention to this stuff. So let's go ahead. The courts say, it would seem almost an impressive exercise of power first to withdraw the child wholly from the care, control, and influence of the father, to deprive him entirely of its presence, society, and aid, to put it entirely in the possession and control of the mother with whom he is at variance, to allow the mother to support, educate, and maintain it in her own way and agreeably to her own pleasure, and then to require from the husband an absolute and unquestioning compliance with all her demands for the means of its support, education, and maintenance. In short, the right of the father to the services and earnings of his minor children is founded upon the obligation which the law imposes upon him to nurture, support, and educate them. They're saying they're reciprocal. And it continues until their maturity if they remain with him, when the law determines that they are capable of providing for themselves. But when the father is deprived of their custody and services by a decree which commits them to the custody of the mother, the duty to support them no longer exists, except as the court may direct in pursuance of some statutory authority. I'm going to go down right here. They're talking about the same thing. They're just saying it in another way in this case right here, which is the Thompson versus Georgia case. But it says, whatever deprives the parent, that includes you two mothers, of the right to the custody and services of the child without fault on his or her part, relieves him or her from the duty to support the child. This is equity. Your remedy is in equity. If you don't know what equity is, I strongly advise you to start studying equity. What I'll do is I'll do this. Let me go here. I'm going to show you what I study when it comes to equity. This is a treatise on equity. Where is it? No, this is it. So let's go to Henry Gibson. It's going to be here, right here. So let's go up. I just want to show y'all, this is one treatise on equity that you can study. Or another word for equity is chancery. It's the same thing. But this is what they're talking about in those two cases that I just read. They're doing equity. So y'all want to know, what do I mean? So let me decipher this for you. So since I already read it on the other page, I'm gonna just delete it from here. But these are the case citations. Well, I'm not gonna delete. I'm just gonna leave it alone. But you can. These are the case citations right here. If you can't find them online, some of the cases are so old you're not gonna find them online unless you go to, where's that site? You have to go here to find it. I'm gonna show you how to find it. Case.law. So let me close this out. We're gonna go back here. Let me get the case citation for you. So if you're in Rhode Island and you want this case right here, it doesn't matter if you're in Rhode Island or not, because these are principles. I just want y'all to know that. The reason why, how would I know for a fact that these are principles? Because they're doing this off equity. These are that book that I just pulled up. Those are equity principles in that book. All right. So another way you can understand this stuff to determine its principles is if once they start citing cases from different states, from different Supreme Courts within different states, like this is the Maine Supreme Court, this is Massachusetts, this is Michigan, and this is Connecticut, and this is Kansas. Once they start doing that, that lets you know it's a principle. All right. So let me look up the. We're gonna do the Georgia case first. So what's that? This is Georgia Supreme Court. It's gonna be volume 163, page 598. So we're gonna go to Georgia. This is the website, case.law. All right, so we're gonna go to Georgia. Right here, these cases go all the way back to 1808. And I think it was volume 163, which is book number 163, and the page number in that book, it is going to be 598. 598. So we're gonna scroll down until we get the page number 598. Showing you how we do this. Boom, there it is right there. See? 163, Georgia, 598. So this was in 1927. And as you can see, the other case, the Rhode Island case, is from 1895 or 1859 or something like that. So I'm going to show y'all that that citation is really in this case. All right. Let's see. I would advise y'all to go and read this case too. You'll get an understanding of it. I'm gonna do a quicker search. And there it is right there. See it right there? Right here. The right to the services of children and the obligation to maintain them go together. What they're saying is these rights are reciprocal. For example, the parent's duty to support the child and his right to the custody and services of the child are generally reciprocal. And then here's it is right here. These are a whole bunch of other cases citing the same exact thing. But here's the case citation right here. Whatever deprives the parent of the right to the custody and services of the child without fault on his part relieves him from the duty to support the child. Same thing. This is what is going on. But anyway, that's how you find that case. I'm not going to look up the other case because you have to basically look it up the same exact way as you found this one, except you just have to go to Rhode Island and look the case up. But I want to explain to y'all what this means. So we're going to be using language that you can understand. Explanation of the legal passage and equity principles. The Hussey versus Hussey passage. This is the Rhode Island case right here. Hussey versus Hussey was a Rhode Island case decided in 1995 involving a dispute over child support after a custody decision. The court addressed whether a father deprived of his child's custody remained obligated to pay for the child support when the mother had full custody. Go down some more. Passage breakdown in simple terms. We're going to use simple terms. The court is saying that it would be unfair, almost oppressive, to take a child completely away from the father so he has no control, time, or help from the child. To give the mother full custody, letting her raise and support the child however she wants, especially if she and the father don't get along. Then force the father to pay whatever the mother demands for the child's support, education, and care without question. That is inequitable. That's not fair. That's not just. That's inequitable. The court explains a basic rule. A father has a right to his child's help, i.e., chores, work, or companionship, because he has a duty to support, raise, and educate the child. These rights are reciprocal, y'all. This duty lasts until the child is an adult, mature enough to support themselves, as long as the child lives with the father. However, if a court takes the child away from the father through a custody order and gives the child to the mother, the father's duty to pay support ends unless the court specifically orders him to pay under state statutory authority. That's what they're talking about. The court cites several cases from other states because this is a principle, like I told y'all: Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Connecticut, Kansas, and a Rhode Island statute to support this idea, showing it's a widely accepted rule. It's a principle. The key legal principle: the father's obligation to support his child is tied to his right to the child's custody and services. If he loses custody without his fault through a court order, he is no longer automatically required to pay support unless a statute or court order says otherwise. Excuse me. This applies to you too, ladies, just to let you know, because you are a parent. All right. This principle is rooted in fairness. It's unjust to make someone pay for a child they cannot see, control, or benefit from, especially if the other parent has control and it's their fault. And I'm going to get to the it fault, the stuff like that. Try to explain to y'all or substantiate what that means. All right. Now, the Georgia Supreme Court case, Georgia involving a wrongful death claim where the court discussed a parent's rights and duties regarding a minor child. The quoted passage addresses the same custody support relationship as Husty. The court says that if something like a court order or legal action takes a parent's right to the custody of their child and benefit from the child's help, work, or services, that this happens without the parent's fault, then the parent is relieved from the duty to support the child financially. In other words, if a parent can't have their child with them or get help from their child because someone else's decision, not their own mistake, they shouldn't have to keep paying for the child's needs. That's all this is saying, y'all. That is all this is saying. This is why men, mostly men, I'm not going to say that this is happening to women too, but it's happening mostly to men. But this is why people are saying this is not fair. Like, how is this fair? First off, let me stop right here and tell y'all something. All right. This goes out to both parents. Okay, you already have rights over your kids. These rights, these are natural rights. All right, you already have these rights without a court order. So let's say, well, we'll talk about that a little later. But I'm gonna tell you right now, you already have rights over your kids. Both of you have equal rights over your kid. I'm just telling you, that's what it is. The key legal principle: the duty to support a child is linked to the right to custody and services. How are you going to say you have a right to the custody and services, but don't claim you have but don't expect to bear the burden of paying for the child's maintenance, education, and all this stuff? You're benefiting from the custody and services of the child. You tell the child to do this and to do that, but you don't want to pay for the child's education, pay for the child's medical bills, maintenance, food, clothing, shelter, all of that stuff. It makes no sense. It's like you're claiming benefits while objecting to being taxed for the benefits that you're enjoying. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. Unless they put that on some sort of contract and you waive your right and stuff like that, then it probably would. But we're talking about this right here without the contract. All right, but anyway, losing custody. Let me see. The duty to support a child is linked to the right to the custody and services. Losing custody without fault, i.e., or example, due to a court decree, removes the automatic obligation to support, aligning with Hussey's reasoning. The principle emphasizes reciprocity. Rights, custody, services, and duties, support, go hand in hand, and removing one without fault should remove the other. This is exactly what they I just told y'all. This is exactly what they talking about, y'all. Equity principles from Henry Gibson's treatise on suits and chancery. Henry Gibson is a comprehensive work on equity jurisprudence, detailing principles courts use to ensure fairness when strict legal rules lead to unjust outcomes. Equity, unlike common law, focuses on balancing rights, preventing unfair advantage, and tailoring remedies specific to cases. The Hussey and Thompson passage implicitly apply several equity principles, from Gibson's work, explained below in terms a 12th grader can understand. Right here, principles of fairness and reciprocity, right here. So let me see, it looks like, I don't know which page that is. It might, I don't know, but it's probably in that book somewhere. So what I'll do is I'm gonna cross-reference, and that's what I'm gonna start doing. Gibson's explanation. Equity ensures that rights and duties are balanced. If one party gets a benefit, custody, they should bear corresponding responsibilities, and the other party shouldn't be unfairly burdened. And I agree with that. So this is section 29. Gibson, I'm not sure if this is the correct page number, but I'm gonna go back in and check. Gibson section 29 on equities, maxims. So give me a second. I'm gonna pause the video and I'm gonna go and check. I'm gonna see if I can find it right quick. I'll be right back. All right, y'all, I'm back. Sorry about that. So during the break, whenever I was trying to research, when I had paused the video, I was trying to find these page numbers, and these are not accurate page numbers, but the information is in this book. It is in there. It's either going to be expressly mentioned in there or implicitly mentioned in there, but you just got to know you got to know it when you see it. I don't know any other way to explain it to you, but this is equity. All right, so we're going to go down. So if you don't mind, just disregard these citations right here. But this is the book. This is the treatise right here. That is it. All right, and as you can see, this is it right here. See this? Their second edition right there, 1907, Henry R. Gibson, treatise on suits and chant. This is the book. All right, it's 1,200 pages, a little over 1,200 pages. But let's go down. All right, so they're going to say they're going to tell you the principles that were applied in this case. So applied to Hussey and Thompson, the court says it's unfair to give the mother full custody, a benefit, and let her control the child's upbringing while forcing the father to pay support, a burden, without any custody or benefits the child's help. This imbalance violates equity rules that rights, custody, and duties support should be reciprocal. Simple analogy. Right? Imagine you're forced to pay for a car you can't drive or even see while someone else gets to use it however they want. Equity says that's not fair, just like making a parent pay for a child they cannot see or raise. Is this making sense for y'all? Let's go down. Prevention of unjust enrichment. Gibson's explanation. Equity prevents one party from gaining an unfair advantage in enrichment at another's expense without justification. Right here. All right. I'm not even sure if that's on that page. But anyway, just disregard the page numbers, y'all. But these are principles. All right. Applied to Hussey and Thompson, if the mother gets full custody and control of the child, she benefits by raising the child as she wishes. Forcing the father to pay support without custody could unjustly enrich the mother, as she gets both the child's presence and the father's money without sharing custody. That's a good argument right there. Equity steps in to prevent this by relieving the father of support duties unless a court order under statute requires it. Simple analogy. If your friend takes your phone and uses it all the time, it's unfair for them to also demand you pay their bill, their phone bill. Equity stops them from getting both the phone and your money. Equitable discretion in custody and support. Gibson's explanation. Equity courts, like family courts today, have discretion to tailor remedies based on the case facts, especially in matters involving children, to promote justice. Let's go right here. Applied to Hussey and Thompson, the court notes that a father's support. let me read this again. The courts note that a father's support duty ends when custody is lost, except as the court may direct under statutory authority. When they're doing it under statute, what are they doing, y'all? When they're doing it under statute, they're acting as executive administrators. So what's going on? I need to tell y'all this too, by the way. So what's going on is these people, and you'll never know this unless you study law, all right? They are constantly switching hats throughout the entire prosecution of your case. You can go into court, and for 15 minutes, the so-called judge may be conducting an administrative proceeding, and then for 30 minutes, the judge may be acting as a chancellor, if that makes sense. In other words, they go from exercising quasi-judicial authority to judicial authority just like that. So you don't really know who you're dealing with. You just have to be able to see it, and the only way you're going to understand it is you're going to have to do research. You're going to have to figure this stuff out. You're going to have to do research. You're going to have to read cases, because they are constantly switching hats in these superior courts. All right. Let's see. This reflects equity's discretion to adjust support obligations based on custody arrangements, ensuring the child's needs are met without unfairly burdening the non-custodial parent. Simple analogy. Think of a teacher deciding how much homework to assign based on each student's situation. Equity lets judges decide support payments based on who has custody and what's fair, not just strict rules. Maxim equity follows the law. Equity respects legal rules, but adjusts them to avoid harsh outcomes, especially when statutes allow flexibility. Applied to Hussey and Thompson, the courts follow the legal rule that parents must support their children, but use equity to modify this duty when custody is lost without his or her fault. The Hussey court cites statute, blah, 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 allowing courts to order support, showing equity works within legal frameworks to achieve fairness. Simple analogy. If a school rule says everyone must attend a field trip, but some kids can't go for good reasons, the teacher, like equity, can exclude them while still following the rule's spirit. How these principles are implicitly implied. When I say implicitly, meaning you're not going to see it. It's not going to expressly say it in there. It's going to be said in another way that doesn't say it explicitly, if that makes sense. In Hussey, the court uses fairness and reciprocity to argue that stripping a father of custody and forcing him to pay support is oppressive, as it imbalances rights and duties. Unjust enrichment is avoided by relieving the father of support unless a statute requires it. Equitable discretion allows the court to adjust support based on custody orders, and equity follows the law by respecting statutory authority, so-called Rhode Island laws. In Thompson, the court applies fairness and reciprocity by linking custody rights to support duties, ensuring a parent isn't burdened without benefits. Unjust enrichment is prevented by relieving the parent of support obligations if custody is lost without his or her fault. If you didn't do anything to cause the custody, let me rephrase this. If you didn't do anything to cause you being deprived of the custody and support of your kid, then the just and fair thing to do would be to relieve you from the duty to support your kid. That's what they're talking about. Anyway, unjust enrichment is prevented by relieving the parent of support obligations if custody is lost without fault. And equitable discretion allows courts to tailor remedies. All right, so let me see. For a 12th grader, these cases are about making sure things are fairness between parents. I hate to bring this down to a 12th grader level, but I need people 18 and up to understand this stuff so you can know how to protect your rights. You have to make the argument. DHR, Child Protective Services, the judge, whoever you want to call it, the state is not going to make this argument in your favor unless it's going to benefit them. You have to make the argument. How you make the argument is you know the facts of your case. If you truly believe that you did not cause for your right to the custody and services of your kid to be deprived from you, then you make the argument. You say, well, Your Honor, since it's not my fault that I'm responsible for, for my rights being taken away, I should be relieved of the duty to support, this kid or whatever, something like that. I have some sample copies of documents in here too as well. I think this video is going to be longer than 30 minutes. I'm sorry, y'all, it's going to be longer than 30 minutes. So just, I guess just pause it and come back and watch it whenever you can. I'm gonna skip this part because I don't think that's important. So let's go back down here. All right, so these are examples of examples and sample court pleadings. So basically, these are fictional scenarios. All right, but we're gonna use these principles. All right, so below I provided 3 detailed scenarios, 2 for fathers and 1 for a mother, where parents can use the Hussey and Thompson principles grounded in Gibson's equity principles to argue in family court cases. Each scenario includes a sample pleading, a motion or petition, formatted for a generic U.S. state court, family court, with arguments based on the cases and equity. These are illustrative, not jurisdiction specific, and should be adapted by a licensed attorney. That's what they're going to, that's what they say. Anyway, you can do this stuff yourself, though, if you know what you're doing. You don't need an attorney, but you can do it yourself if you know what you're doing. Scenario 1, father seeking relief from support obligation after losing custody. So this is the first. These are the facts. The facts are the elements, all right? John, a father in a fictional state, Generica, was married to Sarah. They divorced, and the court awarded Sarah sole custody of their 10-year-old daughter, Emma, due to Sarah's allegation of John's unstable work schedule, not his fault, as he lost his job unexpectedly. So it's not his fault, all right? John was denied visitation rights because Sarah moved 200 miles away, and the court found visitation impractical. The court ordered John to pay $800 a month in child support. John argued this is unfair, as he has no custody or access to Emma, and Sarah controls her upbringing entirely. I completely agree with that. Completely agree with this. That's a fair argument. He's not talking about what she said to him unless it's relevant to the case. He's not talking about how mad he is. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He's keeping it short and straight to the point. Boom. Goal. John wants to reduce or eliminate his support obligations, citing Hussey and Thompson, as he is deprived of custody and services without fault. Does this make sense to y'all? Because this is how you do it. Equity principles, fairness and reciprocity. It's unfair to require John to pay support without custody or benefits from Emma's presence. Unjust enrichment. Sarah benefits from full custody and John's payments, gaining an unfair advantage. Equitable discretion. The court should adjust support to reflect John's loss of custody. Equity follows the law. John acknowledges the court's statutory authority to order support, but seeks equity to balance his burden. Sample pleading, motion to modify child support custody. So this is a motion trying to modify it. I'm going to say whose fault. Okay, so John filed the motion. All right. This is just a sample pleading. All right, so comes now respondent John Smith by and through the undersigned counsel and respectfully moves this honorable court to modify his child support obligation pursuant to blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is they're going to be acting in an administrative capacity, quasi-judicial, and principles of equity. In support, respondent states background. On date, this court awarded petitioner Sarah Smith sole custody of the minor child Emma Smith, age 10, and denied respondent visitation rights due to petitioner's relocation 200 miles away, which the court deemed impractical for visitation. Respondent was ordered to pay $800 a month in child support. Change in circumstances. Respondent has been wholly deprived of custody, control, and services of Emma without fault. Petitioner's relocation and the court's custody order prevent respondent from enjoying Emma's present society or aid, while petitioner has full control over Emma's upbringing, education, and maintenance. Now, y'all know what? I normally don't do this. All right. I normally do not do this. Today, I'm going to solicit donations for this video. That's what I'm going to do. I'm soliciting donations. So let me give y'all my cash app right now. Because this is a great video. And I feel like I'm going to be helping out a lot of people with this video. So I don't care if it's $1, 25 cents, whatever. I'm soliciting donations. Let me see if I got my cash app on here. I got it. I probably don't. Anyway, it's in my videos. This is my cash app. Let me type it up here. That's my cash app right there. I am expecting a donation from y'all for this video. I don't care if it's $1. All donations help. I appreciate it. Let's get back to it. Okay, legal authority, the principle, these are principles now, y'all. So it doesn't matter where you are litigating this from. These are principles. You need to understand these are principles so they apply everywhere. The principles in Hussey versus Hussey and Thompson versus Georgia establish that a parent's duty to support a child is tied to the right to the child, to the custody and services. When custody is removed without fault, the support obligation ceases unless directed by statutory authority. Respondent was not at fault for the custody loss and is as it resulted from petitioner's relocation and external job loss. So this is what they do, y'all. When they put you on child support like that, and when it's not your fault, they presume that it's your fault. Because in order for them to do this, they have to prove that it's your fault. So they're going to presume it. But this is an element that they need to prove. So in other words, they deprived you of due process by presuming a fact not in evidence. You have to object to this stuff. They're denying you due process when they do that. That's just like, let's say this is a criminal case, right? And the state is charging you with murder. We're gonna say murder or something like that. But they don't give you a hearing to determine if the killing or whatever, or the murder or whatever, was intentional. To get the element that they need to prove one element of the. I'm not sure how many elements that the state needs to prove murder, but let's say that there's 3 elements, all right, and the state only proves two elements, and they presume the 3rd element and adjudicates you. They can't do that. They violate due process when they do that, because it's just like convicting you of a crime without evidence of it ever existing that you committed a crime. That's exactly what it is, and they are violating your due process rights when they do that. That's what they're doing. You have to object to it. You make the record. I don't care what the record says. If the judge say that you did X, Y, and Z, and your ex-wife or your girlfriend or your baby mama or your father or whatever, he did this and this, and you know that they lying, then you come back with an affidavit. You file an affidavit, a very detailed affidavit of what happened. You only talk about what's relevant, and that's it. or you file a motion to dismiss for violation of due process, or a motion to vacate for violation of due process, something like that. Trying not to make this video too long. Okay, equity principles per Henry Gibson, blah, blah, blah. Fairness and reciprocity. Equity requires balancing rights and duties. It is oppressive to require a respondent to pay $800 a month while being deprived of all custody and benefits, as petitioner enjoys full control. Unjust enrichment. Petitioner's receipt of full custody and respondent's support payments without sharing custody unjustly enriches petitioner. Equitable distribution. This court has discretion to modify support to reflect respondent's loss of custody, ensuring fairness. And yes, they do. Equity follows the law. Respondent respects blah, 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 which allows support orders but seeks equitable relief to reduce or eliminate the obligation due to lack of custody. Blah, blah, blah. That's the first scenario. All right, let's go to the second scenario. Well, no, let me explain. I got to explain it a little bit more. All right, so how it uses Hussey and Thompson. Cites the principle that support duties end when custody is lost without fault, arguing John's job loss and Sarah's relocations are not his fault. Applies equity to argue the $800 a month obligation is oppressive without custody, seeking a fair balance. So let's go to the second scenario. Father seeking custody to avoid support burden. Michael, a father in Generica, shares joint custody of his 12-year-old son Noah with his ex-wife Lisa. Lisa recently moved to a different city, making joint custody difficult, and the court is considering awarding her sole custody because Noah prefers living with her. Michael is ordered to pay $600 a month in support if sole custody is granted. Michael argues that losing custody will deprive him of Noah's services and companionship, and he seeks to retain joint custody to maintain his rights and reduce support obligations. Goal: Michael wants to retain joint custody, citing Hussey and Thompson, to preserve his right to Noah's services and to avoid an unfair support burden. Equity principles, fairness and reciprocity. Michael should retain custody rights to balance his support duties. Unjust enrichment. Lisa gaining sole custody and Michael's support payments without shared custody is unfair. Equitable discretion. The court should adjust custody to promote fairness. Equity follows the law. Michael respects statutory custody laws but seeks equity to maintain joint custody. Sample pleading motion to modify custody order. So this is Michael. Respondent Michael Jones, pro se, respectfully moves, well, comes now, respectfully move this honorable court to modify the proposed custody order to retain joint custody of the minor child, Noah Jones, age 12, pursuant to blah, blah, blah. So they're going to be exercising quasi-judicial authority. And principles of equity in support of respondent states background. On blah, 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 the court established joint custody of Noah between petitioner and Lisa Jones and respondent. Petitioner recently relocated 100 miles away, and the court is considering awarding her sole custody based on Noah's preference. That doesn't matter. He's 12 years old. Doesn't matter. Sometimes kids don't know what they want. But anyway, respondent faces a proposed $600 a month child support obligation if sole custody is granted. Change in circumstances. Petitioner's relocation threatens to deprive respondent of custody, control, and services of Noah without fault. Respondent has maintained an active role in Noah's life, and the proposed sole custody order would unfairly strip respondent of Noah's presence and aid. Here's the principles right here again. Hussey and Thompson versus Georgia hold that a parent's right to a child's custody and services is tied to the duty to support. Depriving respondent of custody without fault relieves him of support duties unless ordered by statute, and equity requires maintaining custody to balance these rights and duties. Equity principles, same thing all over again, y'all. Equity demands that respondent retains joint custody to balance his support obligations, as sole custody for petitioner would unfairly burden respondent. Unjust enrichment. Awarding petitioner sole custody and requiring respondent support payments without shared custody unjustly enriches Petitioner, equitable discretion. This court has discretion to maintain joint custody to ensure fairness and Noah's best interests. Equity follows the law. Respondent respects blah 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 the statutory code, which prioritizes the child's best interests but seeks equity to preserve joint custody. And that's it. That's that scenario. What else we got? Let's see. How it uses Hussey and Thompson argues. This case argues that losing custody without fault due to Lisa's relocation should preserve Michael's custody rights to avoid an unfair support burden. And I completely agree with that. 100%. Uses equity to seek a balanced outcome, maintaining joint custody to align rights and duties. I completely agree with that. So now we have a scenario for a mother. I'm glad it gave me one for a mother. That's a really good scenario. So, mother seeking support despite custody loss. So this applies to mothers and fathers. So we're gonna, when you see the term mother, just also use the term father as well. All right, because we're gonna be applying principles. And same thing goes for all of the other scenarios that I just used. The two scenarios that I just read, it's the same thing. All right, give me 1 second, y'all. Hold on. All right, so what are the facts to this one? Let's get down to it. Facts. Emily, a mother in Jamaica, had sole custody of her 14-year-old son, Liam, after divorcing his father, David. David recently won sole custody after proving Emily struggled with substance abuse. Her fault, though she's now in recovery. So hold on, let me stop right here, y'all. Look, you don't have to go to court to do this stuff, y'all. Because I just told y'all earlier in the video, you already have rights to your kid. You already have these rights. All right. So let's say if you find out that your kid's mother or father is on drugs and you want to go and get the kid, go get your kid. Unless they just keeping them from you, then you would probably have to go to court because you don't really have a choice because you don't want to go to jail. You know what I'm saying? But if you can go over there and get your kid, go get your kid, let the mother and father know, hey, look, you're on drugs really bad. I don't think this is healthy for our kid. So I'm going to take him or her and they're going to live with me until you can, get yourself better. Once you get yourself better, you know what I'm saying? Then you can come back and get him and be in his life whenever you want or her life whenever you want. It's that simple, y'all. But people just make this stuff so difficult. Anyway, the court did not order Emily to pay child support, assuming David, who is financially stable, would support Liam. Emily argues she should contribute support to maintain a connection. You see this? She's not just asking, to be back in her kid's life because she knows she has to pay child support as well because you can't get one without the other. Anyway, Emily argues she should contribute support to maintain a connection with Liam and prevent David from having total control, citing Hussey and Thompson to show the court's equitable discretion. Goal. Emily wants to voluntarily pay support to share Liam's upbringing costs using equity to argue a fair arrangement despite her custody law. And that is 100% accurate. And she can do that. Our father can do that as well. Yes, you can do that. Equity principles, fairness and reciprocity. Emily's support contribution promotes fairness by sharing parental duties. Equity discretion. The court can order support to involve Emily in Liam's life, benefiting the child. Equity follows the law. Emily seeks a statutory support order to balance her role despite Hussey's default rule. See that? Just so simple. So let's go down and see. How is she going to plead her case? She's going to stick to the facts. Respondent Emily Brown, by and through undersigned counsel, and respectfully petitions this honorable court to order a child support obligation for respondent pursuant to blah, 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 and principles of equity and support. Respondent states, on date, this court awarded petitioner David Brown sole custody of the minor child Liam Brown, 14, due to respondent's past substance abuse issues, which respondent has addressed through rehabilitation. She loves her kid. She want to get herself together, and she want to be a mother. Everybody deserves second chances, in my opinion. No child support obligation was ordered for respondent, as petitioner is financially stable. Respondent is now in recovery, employed, and seeks to contribute to Liam's support to maintain a parental role and share financial responsibilities. It's a change in circumstances. Her life is not the way it was before. It's changed. Respondent's loss of custody was due to her fault. See that? Because she was on drugs. That was her fault. So she lost custody. And in this particular case, she could have been ordered to pay child support because it was her fault. But the father, he must have didn't want it or whatever. Respondent's loss of custody was due to her fault. But her rehabilitation and desire to support Liam warrants equitable relief, which is also her fault because she's changed. She wants to be a mother. She wants to be in her kid's life. Legal authority. So we're going to cite these cases again. Hussey and Thompson hold that a parent's support duty is tied to custody rights, but may be imposed by a court order under statutory authority. Respondent seeks such an order to promote Liam's best interest in equity. Equity principle. Equity supports respondents contributing to Liam's support to share parental duties, fostering fairness despite custody loss. I completely agree with this. Completely agree with this. This court has discretion to order support to involve respondent in Liam's upbringing benefiting the child. Equity follows the law. Respondent acknowledges its code, which allows support orders and seeks an equitable order to contribute $300 a month. Prevention of unjust enrichment, allowing petitioner to bear all support costs without respondent's contribution could unfairly burden petitioner, which equity seeks to avoid. And we finished. How many more pages we got? We got about 2 more. Let me see. Summary and key takeaways, explanation of the passage. So the Hussey case, the court ruled it's unfair to force a father to pay child support if he loses custody of his child without fault through a court order giving the mother sole custody. That's one way, The father's right to the child's help services is tied to his duty to pay for their support, education, and care. So we're going to read this another way. The mother's right to the child's help, i.e. services, is tied to her duty to pay for their support, education, and care. It's the same thing on both sides, y'all. The same thing. You already have custody of your kids. All you have to do is step up and be a parent. You cannot sleep on your rights. The government can't sleep on their rights. You can't sleep on your rights. If custody is taken away, the support duty ends unless a state law or court order requires payment. This protects fathers from being forced to pay without any control or time with their child. Georgia, Thompson versus Georgia Railway, the court said that if a parent loses custody and the child's help without doing anything wrong, they don't have to keep paying support. That's basically what it says, y'all. This applies to both mothers and fathers, emphasizing that rights, custody, and duties, support, go together. They are reciprocal. You can't have custody without being obligated to support the kid. So let's say you and your parent, let's say the mother and the father, y'all are not together no more, and y'all live in 2 separate houses. Okay, let's say that y'all have a little girl, okay? And let's say the father is like me. Since it's a girl, he would want his daughter to spend most of her time, maybe 75% of her time, with her mother. All right. Well, while the mother is with, while the daughter is with the mother, at that time she's with the mother. From the duration of time she's with that mother, the mother is responsible for everything. I don't care if y'all don't like it. She's responsible for everything. Vice versa. If the father had a son and the mother and the father wanted the son to live with the father, then the father is responsible for everything as long as that kid is with him. All right. But let's say that it's summertime now, and the father gets the baby in the summertime. It's a little girl, so summer's about what, 2 or 3 months. We're gonna say, let's say it's 3 months. Okay, so the daughter leaves her mother's house and go and lives with her father for 3 months. For 3 months, fam, you don't need to be calling that lady asking her for nothing. Unless it's like a female problem or something like that, you probably gonna ask your mother or your sister if you got an aunt or something like that. But I would just go to her mother first, because this is her daughter. It's a female problem. It's something like that. You know what I'm saying? So I would go to the mother first. That's what I would do. But other than that, you really don't need to be asking her for nothing. But you let her come and get her whenever she wants, unless y'all already made plans or something like that, and vice versa. When the mother has the daughter, and you let the father come and get her whenever he wants, or if y'all have plans or something. Do y'all see what I'm saying? I hope y'all are getting this stuff. All right. Both cases focus on fairness, ensuring parents aren't unfairly burdened with support payments when they lose their child's custody and benefits through no fault of their own. And if y'all don't send me them cash apps, y'all gonna love this. Y'all send me them cash apps, man. I don't care what it is. Send me some, because I deserve it. I deserve it. And y'all deserve this knowledge. I'm glad you came into this channel. I hate you going through what you're going through, but you're at the right place. Shout out to the guy who wrote that ebook. The guy who wrote that ebook, that child support ebook. The only thing that I did was I read it and I did the research. He's right. That man know what he's talking about, who wrote that book. And I also went back further than he did to see how far back it actually goes. And this stuff is, I think the oldest case I saw was like 1802. And I think it was a South Carolina case or something like that. But let's keep going. Equity principles from Gibson's Treaty, Fairness and Reciprocity. Parents should only pay support if they have custody or benefits from the child, balancing rights and duties. Unjust enrichment. It's wrong to let one parent control the child and get support money without sharing custody, as this gives them an unfair advantage. I agree. I agree with all this stuff. Judges can adjust support or custody orders to fit the case, ensuring fairness and the child's well-being. Equity follows the law. Equity works with state laws, like those allowing support orders, to create fair outcomes. These principles are implicit in Hussey and Thompson, as the court aims to prevent unfair burdens and balance parental roles using statutes to guide equitable remedies. So let's see. Examples and pleadings. Father John used Hussey and Thompson to argue for reduced support after losing custody without fault, citing equity to prevent Sarah unjust enrichment and seeking a fair balance. Father Michael sought to retain joint custody to avoid losing rights and facing unfair support, using equity to ensure reciprocity and fairness. Your attorneys can make these arguments for y'all too, man, or you can make the argument yourself. Mother Emily requested to pay support despite losing custody, using equity's discretion to stay involved in Liam's life and share duties fairly. The sample pleadings show how to argue these principles in court, citing Hussey and Thompson and Gibson's equity principles to seek fair custody or support orders. That'll be it. All right, so look, I'm sorry, y'all. This video was a little longer than I really wanted it to be, but hopefully y'all learned what these principles mean. Hopefully. So before I leave, I'm gonna do it one more time. Y'all just make me some donations to my Cash App. I don't care what it is. You know what you can afford. You know what you can't afford. I appreciate whatever you have to offer. Enjoy y'all day. Supreme Litigant is out. Peace.